Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Friday. This is Seattle Now. Wow, quite a week for holding up the mirror. Seattle foodies were confronted with sexism in the restaurant industry, and we got another reminder of just how those Amazon buys are making it to our doorsteps. Don't look away. We're making sense of it all with Chef Eric Rivera and the stranger's Charles Mudede. But first, let's get you caught up. Seattle is rolling out new protections for people who drive for a living using platforms like Uber and Lyft. Right now, drivers can get kicked off those platforms even if they haven't done anything wrong. Now, a new city law says that's not okay. And a new driver resolution center will give them a place to challenge those deactivations. It's also a place to educate drivers about their rights. Seattle and King County have hit it. Now the state is getting closer and closer to the 70% mark. As of yesterday, just under 68% of Washingtonians 16 and up have gotten immunized. Governor Inslee says he'll reopen things when we hit 70 or by June 30th, whichever happens first. Meanwhile, the governor has opened up another vaccine lottery for military service members and their families. That's because the federal government wasn't sharing immunization records with state officials, so they missed out on the state's shot of a lifetime drawing. The first winner will be drawn next month. And we're headed into a double holiday weekend, and the heat is on. Should be a sunny, warm weekend for tomorrow's Juneteenth parties, now officially a newly minted federal holiday. Then on Sunday, Father's Day, in case you forgot. Temps will be in the 70s and 80s in Seattle, but could hit 90 on Monday. Hey now, it feels good to get to Friday. The sun is out, and bonus, 70% of Seattle and King County residents have gotten COVID vaccines. Dr. Anthony Fauci even gave us a thumbs up. In about another 2 weeks, we'll be able to drop the masks indoors if we want to. Maybe check out a restaurant this weekend if they have enough staff to reopen. Big worker shortage going on in the city. Eric Rivera is here. He's chef and owner of Addo in Ballard. Eric, are you back to 100% June 30th? What is your plan?
No. There's not going to be a trying to go back to normal concept for me. I've changed things along the way for the past year and a half anyway. So we're just going to be doing something different like normal and going from there.
Yeah, forever changed maybe, for real. Charles Mudede is here too. He's a senior staff writer at The Stranger. Charles, has the pandemic forever drained the magic for going out to eat for you?
No, not yet. There are some interesting developments that have happened during the pandemic. I mean, dining outside is now more common than ever before, maybe because of a situation where climate change intersected with the pandemic. We can now, in the Pacific Northwest, take advantage of the clear weather, the sunny weather, and so forth. It's almost like dining on the Titanic. But,
well, we'll go down together, Charles. We'll go down together.
We'll go down together.
I've started eating out again at a couple of places, but just outdoors, and it feels great. But I got to say, it's been a rough week for the restaurant scene in Seattle. Two-time James Beard Award winner Eduardo Jordan is stepping back after sexual misconduct allegations from 15 women, a big Seattle Times investigation this week. Most of his staff quit after the story broke, which is notable. And I've worked in restaurants. It's a tough industry, and I'm sure this goes deeper than one guy. Eric, you know I'm coming to you first. Give us your short state of the restaurant industry address.
I think for a long time, employees have been exploited and kind of forced to deal with things like that. You know, as you can see in the Seattle Times investigation, they've been investigating it for years, but you know, there's also stories where it was previous to his restaurant, where other chefs kind of just didn't take it seriously and let it go on. So the industry as a whole, I don't know if it's happening every restaurant. I have my own restaurant. Stuff like that doesn't happen here. So, but, you know, when you have that many people coming and saying things, you also have something like Willow's Inn happening. It's just an issue. You know, it's a big problem. And a lot of what needs to happen in restaurants is they need to stop acting like restaurants, and they actually need to start acting like a business, a relevant business, hiring practices that are the same as other businesses, practices with like human resources and those types of things, rather than just thinking like this is the 70s and 80s where it was a free-for-all and drugs are all over the place and treating this like a low to no skilled employed place. That's not what this is anymore. People deserve the right to live in and work in a safe space.
At the center of this is always power, of course. And the fact that Eduardo's staff walked out is an interesting shift of power, because that certainly didn't happen at the Willows. I wonder what's at the center of that, because is it a tipping point or is it an anomaly?
I think it's, with Willows Inn, they're a lot more isolated. So the people that are going there, people that are making the trip, the people that are going through the process of all that are willing to go through it. And that's, they're still open, they're still running. I don't know who's going there, but they're going. So they're going to probably avoid everything that's happening. I think on a more Seattle level that's open to the city more, Eduardo's going to have a really hard time kind of coming back from this. And he should. There may be some people that still try to go, or he opens up somewhere. It's going to be tough, and it's not as tough as the people that had to deal with him treating the place like a buffet, for people.
Yeah. And another thing is, I wouldn't be surprised in all of this if the exploitation, in terms of like sexual harassment and so forth and so on, was not consistent with other forms of exploitation at the job. We just don't know about the other forms, but I'm sure we will not see it as an isolated aspect of the way he ran his business. I'll be surprised if there were no other issues attached to his enterprise.
And here's another thing, the way we talk about our food sometimes, so carefully considered to the point where we get mocked like they did in that Colin the Chicken sketch from Portlandia. We are so precious about sourcing of our food and what we're doing, and it makes us feel good. And I totally agree with all that stuff. But where is the customer responsibility in all this? Do I have to pull a busboy aside and be like, hey, are you well treated here? Because I really like eating here, but I don't really want to eat here if they treat you like garbage.
Yeah, I think customers do need to ask questions. If you are in a restaurant and you want to know where the chicken comes from or the steak comes from or if the lettuce is organic, you could easily just turn around and say, what's your start pay for your employees and, what's your hiring process and how many people that you actually have in this really cool kitchen of yours are actually paid in full? Do you guys offer benefits? Those are all perfectly acceptable to send an email before you go dine it somewhere, especially if you're spending, more than $1. And if you really mean it, that's your power as a consumer. So it's going to take the consumer adding those additional things instead of just worrying about the chicken. Now let's worry about the people.
While we are on the subject of hard truths, we learned a lot about Amazon's warehouse operations this week, thanks to a team of reporters from the New York Times. No surprise, really. It takes a lot of people working pretty hard to get that grocery order to my house in under one day. The work is grueling, and company turnover at the warehouse level is astounding. Even now, Amazon's higher-ups are concerned. Time says they're burning through workers at an alarming 150% turnover rate. They may actually run out of workers. Charles, I'm sure you have thoughts on this.
I don't know. I just think that this is our society, right? Amazon is not doing anything that is new, and the attitude towards workers is not that new as well, as dispensable and so forth and so on. The only thing that's alarming is that they're fearing that they may run out of dispensable workers in the way that one runs out of dispensable masks, you know what I mean? And that's their biggest concern. But, the thing that I found funny is that Bezos actually thinks that workers are lazy.
And say what you want about Jeff Bezos, he really understands human nature, because you say, of course, he thinks that workers are lazy, but what he capitalized on the fact is that people are inherently lazy, he thinks, right? He created the problem that he solved, which is that we all now think we deserve stuff immediately whenever we want with a click. Eric, what does Amazon mean to you? Because I'm sure this impacts what you're trying to do.
It's a split. I get a lot of Amazon employees that are the higher paid, office people that come in. The workers, I've lost employees to them going to be workers. So it's kind of like a catch-22 on both sides. The verbiage that they're using about their workers is really similar to what restaurants have passed around as talking points. They're just playing the disposable game. The difference between restaurant and something like an Amazon is they have a lot more money to automate their process. Nothing's going to stop them. nothing. A restaurant can close, that's fine, but something like an Amazon isn't going to be stopped. They're going to figure out ways to keep their things going, keep the systems moving. And if things get tough for them, they can always rely on calling their senator and getting $10 billion to give them a rocket ship to go wherever they want without anything, and the system is theirs.
There is a movement, the not Amazon e-commerce movement, that is springing up. Although the majority of business still goes to Amazon, there is a niche market going on here among people who are truly concerned. But I got to admit, there are times when in my mind, I just go to Amazon because I don't want to do the thing, because in my mind, I don't have time to do the thing, because Jeff Bezos created this monster that is the instant gratification. Actually, long story, I think it goes back to the microwave.
Yeah, but, we always think that we've progressed from the 19th century. We've progressed from the Dickensian sort of picture of capitalism. And in many respects, things have changed, but the root of what Bezos reminds us of is often the root of like those kinds of large-scale operations are still embedded or still dependent on being highly exploitive. I don't think they have much of a choice. Everybody says that Bezos has got $100 billion or so dollars to his name, but a lot of that is stock. And in fact, the majority of it, if not almost all of it, is stock value. And so in order to keep the stock value going up, it places greater pressure on increasing profits in what they call the practical economy, the conventional economy. And unless you de-link those two things, it's not that you feel like whether you should shop at Amazon or not. What we should be questioning is how in the world is this company worth $2 trillion or whatever dollars? How is that possible? And we can't imagine that kind of valuation has no impact on real lives. And so even if you say I'm not going to shop there, it doesn't matter because it's still worth $1,000 a share, and it's still climbing.
And it doesn't just cover shopping on Amazon too. It's Amazon Web Services that kind of hold on to everything, like Netflix and you name it. So there's so many hands in the space, like you can't avoid it.
One more thing before we go. Last week, it was crow dive bombing. This week, Asian giant hornets. I refuse to call them murder hornets. The State Department of Agriculture held a press conference this week to announce somebody found a shriveled up male Asian giant hornet in Marysville. It's probably been dead at least a year. Actually, we aren't even in murder hornet territory yet. The males don't usually show up until July. So we don't even know, people. It could be Asian giant hornet summer. I feel like this story may have been ignored as a potential environmental catastrophe, like so many of the other environmental catastrophe stories, until somebody coined murder hornet. Somebody decided that this story needed some PR.
I feel like that's the bigger positioning that we don't get from it. It's the climate change aspect of it, because we're going to be dealing with wildfires again here in the next couple of weeks. And if we have to close down restaurants, that's going to be the first thing again when restaurateurs are going to come out there going, but there's smoke and we just indoor and all this other stuff. And I'm like, but it's climate change. And when people actually want to start talking about it seriously and be like, that's the leading thing, then nothing's going to happen. And,
it's almost like, it's going to get worse. We're changing the world so much that this is just a peak of an ecological shift that may prove to be unstoppable. But there is a gentleman in Shoreline who sells insects for eating. Before they were a big deal in the USA, he showed me that actually in Japan, they dry the hornets and eat them. So, you may be freaking out, but the way things are going, and maybe
that's the bug chef. The bug chef, Charles.
Yeah, that's the one.
Maybe this is the next level for Addo, man. An opportunity. Maybe you should locally source your Asian giant hornets.
I don't know. Do I have to? I've done a lot of pivoting. Come on.
Thanks again to my guests, Eric Rivera, chef and owner of Addo Restaurant in Ballard, and Charles Mudede, senior staff writer at The Stranger. Have a great weekend, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend about us. Very easy to share an episode. You can do it right from your phone. Jason Pagano produced today's show. Our production team is Clare McGrane, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Diana Opong. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. We'll see you next week.